Maisa Shabar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon Migdal Gedor Mi Beis Rabo. He was coming back from a long stay at the house of his teacher. He was riding on his donkey on the edge of the river. He was very happy. And he was feeling very haughty and arrogant. That's what that means. Da'ato gasa. Da'ato gasa means he was feeling arrogant. Why? Because he had just completed a lot of Torah study. So he was feeling very good about himself. And walking along the path, along this river, he bumped into a man who was uniquely ugly. Mechuar bioter. Amar lo, shalom alecha Rabbi. This ugly man said to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, I said it again. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, he said to him, peace unto you, my teacher. Velo hechzir lo, and Rabbi Elazar did not respond to him. Amar lo, Reka, kama mechura oso ha'ish. Instead of responding to his shalom aleichem in a polite way, this is what he said. He said, how ugly are you? You're really ugly. I'm sorry, I looked at Pesach at the very moment that I said that. I apologize. Kama mechura oso ha'ish. Shema kol b'nei yirecha mechurarin kamoscha. Maybe you come from a city that all the people are ugly like you. Maybe it's something about the place that you come from.
Like he's rubbing it in.
Listen, it's just what it says. We're just reading the words here. Amar lo. So the ugly man responded to him. Ein yodea, I don't know. Elalech ve'emor le'oman she'asani. Go to the craftsman that made me, and tell him kama mechor kli zeh she'asisa. How ugly is the vessel that you have fashioned? That was the response. Meaning, you have a problem with how ugly I am? Okay, so go tell God that you don't like how I came out.
Wow.
Right? So that, right, it's a double slap. Because first of all, he realizes how horrible it is that what he said. And then he also points out the fact that you're going to confront God, you're going to confront the Creator with what you just said.
But did he feel ugly, the person?
Sorry?
Did the person...
The person didn't respond. He said, "Well, I'm actually not that ugly." But I guess it was kind of just obvious and out there. Yeah. So Kevan Shioda ba'atzmo shechata. Immediately, Rabbi Elazar, third time's a charm. Rabbi Elazar said he realized that he had sinned. Yarad min hachamar. He gets off of his donkey. V'nishtateach lefanav. He prostrates himself before this man. V'amar lo ne'enesilach macholi. I have sinned against you. Please forgive me. Amar lo, eini mochalacha achetelech le'oman she'asani ve'amar lo kama mechor kli zeh she'asisa. I am not going to forgive you until you go to the craftsman that made me and you issue your complaint. So Rabbi Elazar was not letting go. He was very, very distraught. And he went after this, he followed this guy back to the city. Yatsu b'nei Yiro likraso. Once they arrived at the city, all the people of the city came out to greet Rabbi Elazar because he was this great Torah scholar that had come to the city. They come out to greet him. Omrim lo, shalom alecha Rabbi, and they all greeted him and gave him shalom aleichem. Shalom alecha Rabbi Umari. Amar lehem lemiatem karim Rabbi. So this man who had been insulted by Rabbi Elazar on the way, so he yelled out to them, "Who are you calling Rabbi?" Amar lo lezeshem b'tayal acharecha. He said, "This man that is following you, that because he's our teacher." Amar lahem imzeh Rabbi al yirbu kamoso b'Yisrael. If this is a teacher, then God forbid there should increase like him in the nation of Israel. Amru lo, so the people were aghast, and they say, Amar lahem kach. Why are you saying this? So he told them, kach v'kach asa. This is what he did. Amru lo, so they responded to him. Okay, we agree. That's not nice. That's bad. Can't argue with that. That's pretty bad. Afal pikein, however, you see that he really is trying to get right. He's sincerely apologizing. Afal pikein mecholo. You should forgive him. Sha'adam gadol b'Torahu, because really he's really a great person, and this is not characteristic of his behavior. Amar lahem b'shvilchem hareni mochalo. Says, for your sake, I'll forgive him. Uvilvad shelo yeh rogel la'asos kein. He should not continue in this behavior ever again, but I do forgive him. Miyad nichnas Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon v'dorash. Immediately after this incident, Rabbi Elazar went into the Beit Midrash and gave the following teaching. Liolam yehei adam rach kakana. A person should be soft as a reed. Va'al yehei kasha ke'erez. And he should not be strong like a cedar. Hard like a cedar. Ulefikach, and therefore, Zacha kaneh litol hayamena kulmos lichtov bo sefer Torah. This is why reeds are used to write a sefer Torah. Lichtov sefer Torah tefillin mezuzos, because it has this quality of being soft.
What's the matter of being soft and not hard? Who is he talking about? Him or the other
He
guy?
is this Rabbi Elazar who insulted this person and went through this process of getting forgiveness.
Right.
He gave this teaching: a person should always be soft like a reed and not hard like a cedar.
And what does this mean?
And he said because the reed has this quality of softness. Just practically speaking, what does it mean that a reed is soft? If you see how reeds grow, right, they sway very, very easily. In fact, they can fold down completely on the
then
ground
still kind of
because of the wind, and then they'll come back up. Right, a tree doesn't function that way.
Is soft the right word?
Rach, yeah,
Because it's malleable. It doesn't. A reed doesn't
something.
break.
Right, that's correct.
It's not a snapping thing, right? There's not a moment of tension that can snap it. But the question is that who is he talking about? He's talking about the person who should be forgiving people, or is he talking about where does that fit in between?
That's a very good point. Is he referring to this guy that was too hard? That's very interesting. I never thought of that possibility. The pashtos is that he's talking about himself, that he was very hard. But that's an interesting possibility.
When was he
I
hard?
what?
When was he hard?
Yeah,
I mean, if you want to say he was ignorant or stupid or whatever, I mean, God forbid, right?
I don't see how that works with the heart.
Seeing how this can possibly work in with what we're going to learn from Rav Kook, we could give a possible interpretation of why this is hard behavior as opposed to soft behavior.
Okay.
But that's very, very interesting. I never actually considered that possibility. That when he's saying that a person should be soft and not hard, he's referring to the guy that was too.
Could forgive him.
Yeah. It seems a little out of place, though.
For sure.
After he
almost-
went through this personal tshuva process, he's going to teach everyone why. And that guy was really the stubborn guy because he didn't forgive me quickly. It seems a bit out of place.
I hear.
Although it is interesting. I never considered that possibility. Anyway, we see this quality. We see this quality that Chazal talk about in many contexts. The quality of softness versus hardness in the Gemara in Moed Katan on Tav Tes Zayin. Gives a fascinating series of drashot of the names of the shlashim of the elite troops, let's say, of David Hamelech, and it gives all of their names. And one of the names of one of these characters was Adino Ha'etzani. Now there seems to be a discussion in different places in the Gemara if the intention is that all of these names were alternative names of David himself, or if these were names of other individuals. The pshat of the psukim is that they're names of other individuals, but you could understand from Chazal, especially here in this Gemara that we're about to read, that these names were also alluding to qualities of David himself. But be that as it may, one of the names that's listed at the very end of Sefer Shmuel is this character Adino Ha'etzani. Adino Ha'etzani. Okay, so says the Gemara, why was he called Adino Ha'etzani? These were not their given names. It's not like they were called to the Torah with this name. It's not like they received this name by their parents, but rather they were war names, so to speak. This is how they were known. So Adino Ha'etzani shebeshas milchama, the time when he went out to war. This is a soldier. The time that he went out to war, Hayamaksha atzmo ke'etz. That's the Eitzani. He was wood-like. He was very hard. By the time that during the time where he was studying Torah, he would soften himself ketolas. He would make himself like a tongue of wool, very, very soft. So the softness versus hardness is a quality that Chazal discuss about why the person has both qualities of hardness and softness. There are qualities of hard and soft. And a person should always make sure that they're leaning more to the side of softness. Now, as we've come across many times in the discussions of the ta'amim, and as we know from just listening to the Torah every week, many of the ta'amim come in pairs. So even though they're individual cantillations, they always come in pairs. So the two ta'amim that we're going to deal with right now is one such instance. In fact, I think it's the most common instance of pairs, right? The Mרכא Tipcha. Mרכא Tipchā are symbolized, as you can see in the drawing over here, these arcs, so to speak, that the arc is pointing downward. The Mרכא comes first, it starts from the top and goes down to the left side, and the Tipchā is the opposite. It starts up and hooks around, so to speak, towards the right. Mרכא means soft, to soften. Rach, Mרכא is soft, and Tipchā, tipuach, means to strengthen. So it's the hardness versus the softness. And Rav Kook is going to explain. I actually learned something very interesting and new for preparing this. The different categories of the cantillations and how it relates to this particular pair of Mרכא Tipchā. So without further ado, let us jump into the language of Rav Kook. So adinut ha'argasha, the gentility of emotion or feeling, hamitueret gamkein betziur rach halev, which is described and expressed with the softness of the heart. Meaning, so the sensitivity and gentility is the softness of the heart. Hamuvenet lo bemuvan harachrachiyut hacholanit, not the softness which is described in the domain of the secular. Meaning, there's a softness that we often, even in our own lexicon, we talk like someone's too soft. Someone's too soft, meaning they're not able to handle situations because they're too sensitive, they're too perturbed. Right? That's not what we're talking about. He makes a point of that. He's saying we're not talking about softness in its secular connotation. Ki'im betor omek haregesh means the depths of feeling. The depths of feeling. Hachoder amok b'chush ha'idun, which penetrates deeply into the sense of gentility. Umolich et kol hamuchash, and it guides all sense. Muchash is senses. Kol hamitzuyar, all that which is formed in the consciousness. Kol ha'oneg, all the delight. Hayafeh v'hanisgav, that which is nice and lofty. Amok b'chadrei neshama, deep down into the recesses of the soul. V'or ha'chayim ha'anugim, the light of this delight of life. Mimakor oneg hakodesh, which is the source of the delights of holiness. Mishtapechu b'hamon galav, it flows down, it pours down in its many waves. V'nishmat Hashem kenachal adanim, mafcha palgea b'malcha min hayamin mimal. As we see the difference between the Mרכא and the Tipchā, just in terms of how they're written, as the Mרכא starts from the top right and continues on to the left. Which connects to the subject which is being thought of. Beziv adanei atzilutan, in the light of its ennobled gentility. El hatachtit hasmalit, it goes down to the bottom left. Laharvaat eden uleshad chayim b'chol tzinorot shifot chayei atanugim, in order to give sustenance. Leshad chayim is like it's like the liquid of life. It's like anything that's alive. I think in agriculture there's a term called wick. If you make a small incision into a tree, and you could feel the moistness of the tree. Depending on the moisture of the tree, you know how well it's doing. Like how if the tree is sick, if the tree needs more irrigation. Right? So that's the leshad hachayim, the moisture of life. V'ziv ha'elyon hamitromem berov adanav mitpashet b'chol hamerchavim. So this gentility of life is then able to spread out to all the different areas. Al pi idnat hamerkah, according to the gentility of the Mרכא, b'noam hamita hamaleya ta'anug varach. So this sense of delight is dependent on the extent to which this softness exists. So let's break this down into perhaps slightly less poetic language. Right? The softness that we're talking about is none other than the ability to be receptive to things outside of you. That's what softness means. Right? Hardness means the person is not receptive. It means that nothing is able. Right? There's no set. Right? It's like even when we have on the tips of our fingers, right? If the skin becomes callous and hard, right? There's a lack of sense there. There's a lack of sense. When the skin is soft, it means that it's able to sense things outside of it. When something becomes hard, it becomes insensitive in the most blunt way possible, meaning the physical senses don't pick up things, and also at the cognitive and an emotional level that we're not sensitive. We don't pick up things because we're hard. Right? We've mentioned many times the prophecy of Yechezkel that the collective phenomenon that the Jewish people will experience in the time of the redemption is that the hearts of Even, the hearts of stone, will become leiv basar, will become hearts of flesh. And there are many, many layers to this prophecy, but just at the surface level, the difference between stone and flesh is that stone is hard and dead. So it's not sensitive to anything. It can't pick up anything. It's not able to receive anything outside of it. Right? It's dead. Even in English idiom, we have, right, the heart of stone means that you're completely desensitized. Right? You have no empathy at all. And a heart of flesh means that the heart is, first of all, functioning as it's supposed to, but it also means that it's permeable. Right? It's able to pick things up from the outside. We discussed, I think a few weeks ago, when we were learning Maseches Avos in the 5th parak of Avos. So it talks about how there's different ranges of experience when people become enraged easily and are able to recover from their anger. Right? These terms to describe anger and recovering from anger. Do you remember what they are? Right? Kashe lichos, bakashe lirtzos.
Oh yeah, right.
Lirtzos. So what does that mean? Right. So there's kas and ritza. Let's call it. I can't think of how to formulate that word exactly, but lichos and liratzos, to become anger and to recover from the anger. So liratzos means to be consoled. That's what it means. Like someone comes and asks forgiveness. That's what that means. Person becomes angry, and then liratzos means that someone comes and asks to, right, he says sorry, basically. So someone who's easily consoled from anger, it means that they are opening themselves up to being consoled. That's what that means. It means that they are conscious and making a decision consciously that I'm going to be open to receiving from someone else in order to affect my mood. That's what it means. What's kas at the end of the day? What is anger? Anger at the end of the day means we have our ratzon, we have our will, and we're experiencing friction with that will in the world. That's what it comes down to. So it's my will against the will of the world. That's anger. That triggers rage. Yeah. So leratzos means to recover from that, to retreat a little bit, to not be head-on collision with the world, but rather to back up, so to speak, and be open to being consoled, being open to receiving an apology. Now that I'm saying this, I'm realizing that actually backs up a lot what Daniel was saying with the interpretation of the Gemara. That it could be that he's referring to this guy who didn't want to be consoled, or he didn't want to receive the apology. Anyway, be as it may, the point is that this rachut, this softness, is something that Rav Kook says really it sits at really the root of the soul. Why does it sit at the root of the heart? Excuse me, the heart, not the soul. Why does it sit at the root of the heart? Because naturally, with time, we build up hard layers around the heart. Why is that? Because the truth is, we don't want to be highly impacted by every single experience that we have in the day. If we did that, we wouldn't be able to function. Right? In fact, a great line, even at the cognitive level, right? We think that the brain is like a computer for processing information. Primarily what the brain does, most of the activity of the brain is sifting things out. That's what the brain mostly does. You're not conscious of 99% of the things in this room right now. Mm-hmm. If you were, you wouldn't be able to pay attention. Maybe you don't want to pay attention, but right, 99% of the things that are going on right now, you just don't know, and that's good because they're not relevant. They're not relevant to you. So similarly, at the emotional level, most of the things that we interact with, we don't want them to come and influence us so much because who can live in that way, right? So we build the things, and this is good. This is good and healthy that we build layers around us in order to not be affected all the time by things that are surrounding us. However, at the omek halev, at the depths of the heart, is this adinut. It's this softness. It's this gentility that we want to be able to receive the other. Because without this gentility, there's no authentic interaction. There's no authentic dialogue between the individual and the rest of the world. To maintain the rachut, to maintain the softness is what we need in order to be able to, right, in order to ascend to the heights of holiness, in order to be able to receive things. And this is why Rabbi Elazar says the Sefer Torah is written with the embodiment of softness. Because Divrei Torah is meant to be received with this softness. If we're hard, right, to the extent that we're hard and we have barriers up in front of us, we're not able to receive words of Torah. We want to be able to receive things outside of us. We want them to be able to have an impact on us. And the rachut is this, right, is this quality. And something that I was thinking about. When I opened up preparing for this discussion this evening, I recall that during my last round in Aza, it just occurred to me very strongly how everything around you in a war situation is very hard. Everything's hard. And as we all know, from bumping our heads into things and stubbing our toes, right? If something is really hard, even a very, very relatively easy contact with it can be very uncomfortable or even painful. Why? Because there's no give. There's no give at all. So all the force of that movement is now, but you're feeling it. You're feeling the force of that movement. Yeah, and all the gear that you put on is hard on the outside and it's soft on the inside. You put on the body armor, it's very, very hard on the outside. You want it to be as hard as possible, but it's soft so that when it makes contact with you, it's not uncomfortable, right? You put knee pads on, you want them to be very hard so you can, crawl and put your knee down on concrete. But it's soft where it hits your body because you don't want that hard contact on you all the time. We want to be able to be hard on the outside and soft on the inside. Right, to maintain this rachut, to maintain this adinut, this gentility in the depths of the heart is what allows us to make contact, with holiness.
Can you define what a lev basar would be open to that the lev evan would not? In other words, not just God is sending messages, and many people follow, let's say, religion to many, to all kinds of particulars, but they may still have a lev even, I imagine. So what is it what is the range that's opening, that defines it as a lev basar?
I'm not sure I understood the question. What do you mean range?
In other words, it can't just be this is what you should do, because a lot of people follow what you should do, but that may not be what God wants them to morph into at the time when he's giving out his lev basar. It must be sensitivities beyond hearing, what the laws are, what I have to do. I have to get up and wash my hands and go to shul and this and that and do all these things. That is your.
I don't think that's the lev basar. I think that the lev basar, the softness, is being open to what's being communicated through those things.
Exactly.
Listening to the commandments and taking orders is relatively easy, right? If you just follow instructions and it's fine. Right. I don't know if it's so dependent on lev, but I mean, someone who's really stubborn doesn't want to follow instructions, maybe. But relatively speaking, most people can follow instructions. The question is, are we open and receptive to the messages that are being communicated there? I think the main point, and I'm kind of skipping to the end of here a little bit, but I think the main point that's being communicated is that these qualities of hardness and softness are actually within conscious control. Meaning, we often think that sometimes I'm cut off and hard, and sometimes I'm soft and open, and it's just whimsical. Depends on my mood, depends on what's going on, depends on the circumstances. So kamash malan, that's not true. These are tools that we can activate. We can activate softness. Right. This goes back to the Mishnah. Kasha lichos v'kal lirtzos. A person could be hard to anger. Right. He could be defensive. Right. He could be hard and self-control and disciplined, that he's not going to become angry. But then, when someone approaches him and wants to make amends, he can consciously open himself up to be receptive. These are tools that we can practice. Just like you become better at jogging and have a better jump shot, you can practice with time. You could practice being kal lirtzos. You can practice being open to receiving from without.
Yet God has to do a medical.
Has to perform something on us, right? So as with all, so 100%. So as with all the effects of the redemption, this is a culmination after there's a massive evolution of consciousness, right? Well, the Shavei Fesha B'Yaakov, right? The redemption comes to those who return, right, within the Jewish people. So this process of returning is already a massive, massive change, which is culminated with these, the top of the pyramid, so to speak, is a supernatural intervention. But what precedes it is a lot of work. So this is a very good segue into the next tam, the Tipcha. So just as an introduction, this is the thing that I alluded to before, that I learned something new. there are several categories in which the ta'amim are broken into. Okay, the categories are as follows: the Caesar, the Caesarim, which literally means the Caesars, like Caesar, like the head of Rome, right? Like the emperors, let's say. The emperors, okay? The Malachim, the kings. Mishnim, the second in charge of the kings. And Shlishim, the third in charge.
It's like chess almost.
It's like, yes, yeah. It kind of reminds you of that. It's interesting. Yeah, so there's these four categories. The emperors, the kings, second in charge, and third in charge. Now, what are these categories for? So again, if we pay attention to the musical flow of the ta'amim, it's measuring the degrees to which the ta'am makes a break in the reading. There are some ta'amim which are just flowing from one to another, and then there are ta'amim which have a strong break in the reading. What's the ta'am that has the strongest break? It's not such a hard even what? The sof pasuk, right? The sof pasuk is the end, right? It's the end of the pasuk. There's a clear stop in the flow of the music, so to speak, and then it picks up with the next pasuk. Yeah.
So what's the sof pasuk?
What's the second hardest? The esnachta, right? The esnachta is like the middle of the sentence.
Are they both the same? Or are they?
No, they're not the same. The esnachta is a much softer stop. Right, it's like a comma.
Are they
sort
the same category?
They're in the same category. Yes.
Yeah, so they're
both are relatively hard stops. Right, the esnachta is not as hard as a sof pasuk, but it's pretty noticeable. Meaning, if you pay attention to when the esnachta integrates into the reading, it's a very abrupt. Right? It's a noticeable pause.
So which
Those
category?
Are the two. Bottom line, if you don't do those two properly, you've got.
Nachon, exactly.
Those are the two.
Yes, 100%. And those are the two. It's interesting. I don't know if there's a masor. I don't know if there's a source that the esnachta is a masora. The Gemara in Megillah says that the sof pasuk is a masora from Sinai, like where each verse ends. In terms of where you put the asnachta.
Wait, I thought the sof pasuk. I thought that's those are sentences, is it?
Correct.
The
sentence breaks and the parsha breaks. Not the parsha's like the weekly parsha, but rather the gaps in the writing.
In the actual
gaps
Sefer
in the
Torah.
reading, right? The gaps in the Sefer Torah writing, and where a given pasuk ends. All of those are in Masorah. All of those were given in Masorah. Where the asnachta is put is not necessarily. I don't know a source that indicates either way. It's just interesting to note. So then we have it gets gradationally lower and lower as we go. Which ta'amim have a softer stop, so to speak. So the second category, milachim, kings. So already by the name, it's connoting that on the one hand they're strong, but not as strong. Like the king is not as strong as the emperor. Yeah. So the mרכא טפחא always goes in to the hard stop. Typically, the mרכא טפחא precedes the hard stop. So it's like the soft stop that's getting to the hard stop. It's kind of like pushing on the brakes before you get to the red light, so to speak. Right? It's the soft stop that precedes the hard stop.
So that's the melachim.
That's the Malachim, correct. In the Malachim category, we have Zakef Katon and Zakef Gadol, also ta'amim that we did before. The Sagolta, the Shalsheles. It's interesting that the Shalsheles is considered a melech. That's interesting. I would have considered it more flowy, but okay. And the Mרכא טפחא. The Mרכא טפחא is the softer stop. So what's the Tipcha, the hardness? So we have over here in the Gemara in.
Mרכא טפחא are malachim or just?
They're Malachim, yeah.
Just Tipcha.
It's a stop. No, both, because they always come together.
Yeah.
The Mרכא טפחא, they always come together. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin on Daf Zayin gives a very interesting drasha from a pasuk in Mishlei. Daf Zayin, Amud.
Doesn't the tipcha, doesn't it have like on the bottom of the letters as well, but only the tipcha, not the munah?
So it could be on one word. The Mרכא טפחא could both be on a single word, or they can join a clause together. Like the Mרכא is on one word, and then 3 words later is the Tipcha.
Mm.
So
is it always on the top, or sometimes on the bottom as well?
The Mרכא טפחא is always on the bottom. Always appears on the bottom.
On the bottom.
Yeah, it always appears on the bottom of the word. So says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the pasuk from Mishlei says the following: Melech b'mishpat ya'amid eretz, that a king with justice will establish the earth. He will make stability in the land. V'ish trumos yarsena, and the man of truma, he will destroy the earth. So we have on the one hand the melech who gives out justice, that's good, and the ish trumos is the opposite of that. The ish trumos who destroys the earth, so to speak. So says the Gemara, im dayan, if the judge doma lemelech is like a king, she'eno tzarich leklum, he doesn't need anything. Ya'amid eretz, so he will be able to establish the land. He will be able to bring stability to the earth. V'im doma lekohen, but if he is like a kohen shemachazer bebeis agronos, that he goes around to the grain houses. What is it saying? The trumos, ish trumos, like truma that the kohen takes. Ish trumos, the man of donations. Even in modern Hebrew, a donation is a truma. Yeah. So the ish trumos, the man of donations, he will destroy the earth. So we have the melech who connotes this sense of independence. He doesn't need anyone else. That is the person that is able to establish the earth. And the ish trumos, the person who is completely dependent. He's completely dependent on other people for his existence. He will wreck everything. He will be hores. He will wreck the earth. So,
What is this referring to, though?
That's not all right. I guess on election night we can get political.
I was
right?
going to say, well, it sounds like Trump is the guy. But what is this exactly referring to? Is this referring to something specific, or is this just a generic understanding of how things might work?
It's interpreting the pasuk as describing two types of qualities. One is someone who's independent. Someone who's independent. Eino tzarich leklum. That's the melech. Someone who's independent is much more able to make order out of complex situations. Someone who's dependent, who requires other people for their existence, cannot be relied upon to make order out of complex situations.
Okay, and so
that's the commentary, right? So you have the archetype of the melech, right, like an actual king who's like at the top of the hierarchy of the society. He doesn't need anything. And then at the bottom rung, you have the Kohen type person who literally for his livelihood depends on other people. Those are the two sides, so to speak. Yeah, but it's these qualities that it's honing in on. So the Tipcha is the other side that balances out the Rakut. On the one hand, we want to have the Rakut, we want to have the softness, we want to have the susceptibility, we want to have the sensitivity. But on the other hand, we can't have too much sensitivity. Why not? Because too much sensitivity, what's the definition of too much sensitivity? It means that forces from outside are influencing you beyond what you want. You don't want outside forces to be the determining fact. You want to be able to be sensitive to the things outside of you, but the second that they're determining your own path, that is when it's become too soft. So the tipcha, the strengthening element, balances this out. So this is what Rav Kook explains, and the Tipchah section is not that particularly long in Rav Kook. Lemazeg et achush, lemazeg. I think we've come across this word before, and I didn't have a good translation before. Lemazeg is like limzog yayin, when they would mix a little bit of water into wine in order to make it drinkable. Lemazeg, like to balance out. That's probably a good translation. Lemazeg et achush ha'adin, in order to balance out the sensitivity, right, this sense of gentility, shal harach, of the softness. Ba ha'olem ha'muzikali ha'tipuach ha'zimrati, this musical note, which is the tipuach, ha'omer kulo oz v'ta'atzuma, it is all strength and independence. V'ha'atzma, atzma malchutiti, it is the independence of kingship. Gezerah omer, and here he's alluding to when he says it's the independence of kingship. He's referring to the fact that, again, the Mרכא Tipchã is in this category of ta'amim called the kings. That they're a stop, but a softer stop than the emperors. Gezerah omer, it comes and gives forth a decree. Haba'ak tzarak dvar melech v'shilton, just like a king and someone who is in charge gives forth. Nohaim kekfir, it roars like a lion. Hamut'ama letel al esev li'idun harach, it comes in contrast to this. It's interesting. He uses grass as the embodiment of softness, li'idun harach, to this gentle softness. V'shnehem yachad, both of them together, meaning the mercha, the softness, and the tipcha, the hardness, both of them together. Hamercha rakava, tipcha atzuma, hamleya ozu gvura, which is filled with strength and valor. B'pchiza mihira ma'atzemet halumata, osim hem yachad et hachativa hanishmatit. They come and form this unit. Chativa is a unit. Hanishmatit, of the soul. Hamakshiva l'siach haranana besod kodesh, that is able to hearken, is able to hear The dialogue, Besod Kodesh, in the secrets of holiness, La Harmonia Shlema, which forms a complete harmony, Shekula Omeret Kavod, all of it gives forth honor, Hod, splendor, Noam Ba'oz, pleasantness and strength. So this is a really beautiful line that he ends over here, that in order to be able to listen to something, you need to be able to be, on the one hand, sensitive and open to be able to hearing it, but you also need to remain your own independent person. Because if you're not your independent person, then you're not listening to anything. You're not actually taking anything in. You've just completely nullified yourself to the messenger, so to speak, to the one giving forth the message. This is the Mרכא, Tefchã balancing act. Right? The conscious decision to be open, to be soft, to be able to listen to the other, to receive consolation from the other, but on the other hand, to remain strong in the places that we want to be strong and not dissipate, not lose our own identity in the softness. And I think that this is why this Gemara that we brought, I think, is so important. Because it gives a definition. It gives a definition of how to determine the hardness versus the softness. Right? The minute that the softness allows you to be malleable by other people to their interests, that means you're too soft. Once other people are putting their interests upon you, then that's a sign that you're now an ish trumos. You've lost your independence. Because you're dependent on others, so they're manipulating you. So you don't want to be the ish trumos. You want to be a melech. You want to be a melech. What's the definition of a melech? It means that I have my things that I'm doing, and I'm going and doing that. On the way, I'm listening and I'm hearing and I'm open and I'm very sensitive along the way. But I have my path that I'm doing, right? That's the sense of malchus. So we want to maintain the sense of malchus and not deteriorate, God forbid, into the ish trumos yarasena. The specific context, by the way, of this Gemara is talking about the qualities of a dayan. Right? The Chachamim were very, very stringent on this point, that if a judge has any connection to a particular case that would render him biased, he's completely disqualified. And the Gemara in Ksubos at the end, I believe in Daf Kufay, tells several stories about how Chachamim would have seemingly menial interactions with people, and at the end of those interactions, they would declare themselves completely invalid for judging that person's case. Right, it says Shmuel, for example. Shmuel, the great sage from Bavel, was walking across a bridge, and some guy helped him across the bridge. Right, it was already an older man, and so he helped him walk across the bridge. He said, "Listen, Rabbi, I have a case. Me and my friend are arguing about a sum of money. Can we come and hear?" He said, "I've been invalidated. I've been invalidated."
So does that mean that they're not letting themselves connect to the malchus, and they're just letting themselves be too malleable?
I think that these stories. This is why I brought this story. I think that this story highlights how intensely the Chachamim lived with these two qualities, because they had intense rakut, intense softness and sensitivity. So when they interacted with people, it was a real, genuine interaction. The fact that Shmuel just received the help from this guy, the stranger, he helped him, 5-second interaction, he helped him across the bridge. That already was so powerful that in his mind, he was invalidated.
So they were genuine with each other,
yes,
with themselves.
Yes, the Rosh has a very powerful comment, not in Ksubos, but in Sanhedrin, in the third paragraph of Sanhedrin. He says, very, very powerful. I'm not going to look it up for Kavod Tzibur, but I promise you it's there. He says the following language. He says, why is it that someone who has this type of interaction with someone, they've been invalidated, right? Person can say, listen, I know what the halacha is. I know this guy stole from that guy. He's chayav. What's the problem? You think because of that interaction, I'm gonna lie. I'm gonna intentionally manipulate the din because this guy helped me out. Right. So says the Rosh Bidu, he says ki ha'ava mitzbatz betzes. The love boils up betoch libo shel adam. It's not intentional. We don't think that you're going to intentionally give the wrong psak because you want to help out your new friend who helped you across the bridge. That's not what we're concerned about. We're not saying that you're going to intentionally do it. It's going to be automatic. You're not even going to realize what you're doing.
So that means
Mitzbatz betzes, it boils up from the well, right? Like the well springs of the heart. They come and express this love.
What a different reality they lived.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable heightened sensitivity. Right. Well, but it shows you the two sides of their sensitivity. On the one hand, they lived with tremendous empathy and openness to human interaction, that they could be so impacted by this little favor of walking across the bridge, on the one hand. On the other hand, they were self-aware enough to know that I've been invalidated. I can't judge your case anymore. I can't do it. Yeah, it just shows that the lesson of the Mרכא Tipcha is not to tell us this massive chiddush. We are sensitive and hard at the same time. We already knew that. The question is to know that these aren't whimsical things. We're not victims to circumstance. Sometimes we're hard and disconnected. Sometimes we're soft and open. No, these are tools that we can consciously wield. And we could be aware of them to navigate the circumstances accordingly. To be Bezrat Hashem, to be both malachim, right, melech mishpat yamid eretz, and at the same time to the adinut be'imkei alev, right, the softness and gentility that sit at the basis of the heart.
That pasuk that the Gemara quoted happened to have any trouble.
Which one?
The one you just said about the melech and the Kohen.
Oh, from Mishlei?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Mishlei's got different trouble anyway.
Yeah,
That'd be
Mishlei has
so
different trouble
interesting
anyway.
to see. That would be so interesting to look at.
Does the Malachim and Caesarium come
Right.
Do the malachim and
I think
kesarim?
it's
Well,
There's a story of Rabbi Nachman. It's like
Yeah.
the Caesar and the Melech.
okay.
I'm like,
it's like
Is-
you know
does
what
that
it's
go
like
in-
your question.
Interesting.
You know, it's
I mean,
like- it's
these
like
are for sure. These are for sure
when you go to a yeshiva, you turn the
nomenclatures of Chazal. Meaning, it's not like
You
at
just want
Sinai
the clothes
Moshe
to
said
wash.
these are called
That's all
malachim
you
and these are
want.
called kesarim.
But
They're terms that
it's
Chazal
interesting to
use to
overlook the
categorize
issue and
them,
break it apart and see how
just to label the
everything works.
categories.
But every time
yeah,
you look
it's
at
very
machines,
interesting.
that's not
I'm
what
not
you're going
aware
for.
of a
And
particular
sometimes if you want to sit in
case
conflict
where
with
they
the
use the
cool
kesar
things,
versus the melech.
then you can kind of fall into that.
So,
Like when you're